Hi, Pankaj. Good morning to one and all.
Hello, Pankaj, am I audible?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So should we start or should we wait for some more time? What do you say? I think
Yes,
2 minutes.
members will join. So let's start.
Okay.
There are 18
I
members.
think we should wait for 2 more minutes. What do you say? It
For
says
sure.
11:02. We'll start at 11:05.
Sure. No worries. No worries.
No, I just 2-3 minutes more.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Girish, sir, for your
But
cooperation.
I am audible, right? Do I need
Yes,
to
yes,
wear
yes.
a?
Yeah, sir. Very clear.
Great. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
To all of you, and thanks for participating in the webinar. So here we are back with one more session on COVID. So this session is will be given by Mr. Girish Natarajan. I will give his introduction. Girish is a business leader and an entrepreneur and comes with over 18 years of experience in banking across leading private sector and multinational banks such as ABN AMRO, ICICI Bank, HSBC, ING Versa, and IDFC Bank, where he was a director and founding member before turning into entrepreneur. He is a thought leader and has provided solutions to a diverse set of global and the local clientele across multiple industries. Currently, he is a partner and founding member at Visuland India Private Limited, a new age non-banking finance company promoted by senior banking professionals with the objective and operating philosophy to provide efficient and affordable working capital solutions best suited to clients based on a trusted and transparent relationship. On the academic front, he is an engineer, holds a postgraduate degree in business management from XLRI Jamshedpur, a premier B school of the country. Uh, Thank you, Grisha, for accepting our invitation. Thank you very much for taking out your precious time. So now the session is over to you. You can start with the session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shikaji. Thank you so much for the kind words and the wonderful introduction that you have given me. And thank you to the CA fraternity at Chembur who have given me this opportunity to share my thoughts on the topic today. So without much,
So sorry, I just forgot to tell about the topic. The topic is decoding the government's 3 lakh crore schemes and innovative solutions for efficient working capital management in the post-COVID scenario, which is, most required topic in today's time. Here, many professionals will be looking for many, solutions and views. So you can start the session, sir. It is over to you. Thank you so much. Hello.
Absolutely. Am I here?
Yeah.
I'm audible, right?
Yes. You can. You are audible, sir.
Great. So, perfect.
Yes.
So, these are the topics that I would typically be covering. Just to put things in perspective, I will give a quick brief about the global impact of COVID on the industries and financial institutions. And then we'll talk about the revised guidelines of the government. Now, the MSME definitions have changed. And obviously, the hot topic of decoding the government's 3 lakh crore scheme will be addressed. Then I will try and talk about the existing financial products that are there currently that in the offering by the lending institutions and try and map out the relevance of those products in this current scenario, both from the perspective of an FI and from the perspective of from a customer. And last but not the least, the most important aspect, I will be talking about the innovative solutions that are currently in vogue in the current scenario and how this will help restore faith and probably help customers in coming back and helping them in reviving their businesses. So these are all innovative solutions that I would be talking about, and I'm sure that after the session, some amount of inputs from my side would help enlighten all our members. That's the objective. So what has been the global impact of COVID on industries and financial institutions? If you actually see, 5 major industries globally have been impacted really seriously, if I may say so. The airline industry has been impacted big time because of mass grounding of air traffic. There has been widespread closures of gaming facilities, and introduction of social distancing measures have really downturned the casinos and the gaming industry. This I'm talking worldwide. Postponement of major sporting events such as Summer Olympics has impacted the leisure industry. Shutting down of manufacturing and production facilities amidst global lockdown. The major impact has happened on the auto parts and the equipment industry. And there has also been a drastic demand, there has been a drastic reduction in demand for the oil that has resulted in a sharp fall in the oil prices. So these are the major industries and the impact that has happened globally because of COVID. The financing institutions also are not left behind. They have also been impacted in a major manner. What has come to the forefront has been the fact of the inadequate digital maturity that has been shown by financing institutions worldwide. There has been sharp fall in the branch-based transactions, and hence digital transactions and transaction banking per se, from a technology standpoint, has come to the forefront. Banks are seeing stretched credit lines. Delinquency rates have increased. The exchange rate fluctuation has not helped anyone. There has been elevated bankruptcies also. Given this backdrop of both the impact of COVID on the industries and the FIs, one will also need to understand the impact that the SMEs make on the economy in India and why it is important. Just a few hard-code numbers. SMEs contribution in the Indian economy, it contributes 9% to the GDP, 30% to the exports, and 45% of the manufacturing output comes from the SME sector. And yes, that is the reason why the government has come out with schemes to revive the SME sector. And without much ado, I think I will now straight away dive into the schemes that have been offered by the government and the revised definitions of the SMEs. So what has been the revised definition? Earlier, there was a clear distinction between the manufacturing sector and the service sector. This distinction has now been eliminated, and there is a composite criterion for both the manufacturing and the service sector. So as of now, any investment in plant and machinery and equipment which is not more than 1 crore and an annual turnover of not more than 5 crore is classified as micro. Investment in plant and machinery of not more than 10 crores and an annual turnover of not more than 50 crores is classified as small. And an investment in plant and machinery and equipment of not more than 50 crores and an annual turnover of not more than 250 crores is classified as medium. So now what this has done primarily is that it has opened up it has spread. The government has tried to include as many industries, as many SMEs as possible in this particular scheme. This is the idea with which the revised classification and definitions have happened. And it is very important to understand and have a decoding done in terms of what this particular 3 lakh crore scheme of the government means. So I have tried to do the best that I can in giving a quick summary in terms of what this stands for. So what is this 3 lakh crore scheme? The name of the scheme has been defined as the Emergency Credit Line Guarantee Scheme, and the product. So please understand there is a difference between ECLGS and GCL. ECLGS, which is the Emergency Credit Line Scheme, is the name of the scheme, and the product under this particular scheme is called Guaranteed Emergency Credit Lines, GCL. So what is the purpose of this scheme? The purpose of the scheme is to provide 100% guarantee coverage and an approved sanction limit of up to 20% of the loan outstanding as on 29th of February 2020 to all eligible borrowers. Please mind that these are all additional facilities that have been provided by the MLIs. By MLI, I mean the member lending institutions. The additional working capital term loan facility would be provided in case of banks and financial institutions, and additional term loan facility will be provided in the case of NBFCs. Who will be eligible? All business enterprises, micro, small, medium, and all enterprises who have availed lending under the various government schemes like Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana will also be eligible under this particular scheme. What is the date of commencement and duration of the scheme? The scheme has already come into effect from the date of issue of the guidelines by the NCGTC, which is the National Credit Guarantee Trust company, formed by the government to facilitate the lending options for the SMEs and the MSMEs under this particular scheme. And the duration of this particular scheme will be up till the 31st of October 2020, or up till an amount of 3 lakh crore that is sanctioned under the GECL has been exhausted, whichever is earlier. Yeah. Now, what is the eligibility criterion? For the member lending institutions, all scheduled commercial banks and non-banking financial companies are eligible to participate and get monies under this particular scheme. Now, there is a criterion for NBFCs. All NBFCs that are operational for 2 years as on 29th of February can participate in this particular scheme. This is a very important aspect to note. So new NBFCs coming up may not be in a position to raise money under this particular scheme. You necessarily need to have 2 years of operation as on the 29th of February 2020 for NBFC specifically. Other institutions can easily go and get the funds from the respective under this particular scheme. Who are the eligible borrowers? All business enterprises, MSME borrowers, accounts with a combined outstanding loan. Please understand, it's the combined outstanding loan across all member lending institutions up to rupees 25 crores as on 29th of February 2020. The imperative word here to understand is that it is a combined outstanding loan as of 29th of February 2020 and up to a total turnover of 100 crores. Now, one will say that, as of February 2020, I have not closed my books, or I do not know, I cannot authentically talk about what my turnover will be, on 29th of February. Now, already the limit has passed. So let's say even if your outstandings as of 29th of February are not closed, or maybe you're not up to it or up to date, you can still submit your projections and try and talk to the member lending institutions to consider your case under this particular scheme. MLIs are expected to check with the credit bureau for the overall outstanding of the borrowers to assess the eligibility. Now, this is very important. Now, the onus is on the MLIs, the member lending institutions, to ensure that the right people and the right eligible customers are given the monies from their pocket. The loans are to be provided to the MSMEs and enterprises which are constituted as proprietorship, partnership, registered companies, trusts, and limited liability partnerships shall be eligible under this particular scheme. But one also will have to note that if there is an entity or there is an individual who has taken a loan under his own under his own self as a promoter, that will not be considered. So I've given an example which states that, for instance, an existing loan such as a commercial vehicle loan taken by an entity shall be covered, but a CV loan taken by a promoter or a director in the personal capacity will not be covered. One has to be very clear with this particular aspect. No, one cannot combine the loan taken by an individual and the loan taken by a particular entity, and as the outstandings are as of 29th of February to be considered under this particular scheme. It has necessarily needs to be the existing loan taken by the entity. For this purpose of the scheme, all loans covered under the Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana on or before 29th of February will also be considered, but the same will have to be reported on the Mudra portal. This scheme, as I said, is valid up till the 29th of February. But a very important aspect to note is that it is valid for customers who are on the books. This is valid for existing customers. Mind it, these are valid for existing customers on the books of the member lending institution borrower whose accounts are less than 60 days past due as on 29th of February 2020. Which means that all borrowers which have not been classified as SMA2 or NPA by any member lending institution as on 29th of February 2020 will be eligible. Days past due status as of 29th of February needs to be checked across member lending institutions. So a member lending institution will have to obviously speak and do the respective due diligence, not only with respect to their own books on or their own exposure on that particular entity, but it has to take note and cognizant of the fact that what is the status across all lending institutions that are given loan to that particular entity. Important aspect for loans having co-applicant. Now, this is something that has come to the forefront many a times, and lot of SMEs are asking me this question as to what will happen, if I'm a co-applicant and I'm not a primary applicant. So this clearly states that for loans having co-applicant, only those existing loans where entity is the primary co-applicant are covered under this particular scheme. So this clearly put things in perspective. The loans provided under individual capacity shall not be covered, as I said earlier. The business enterprise and the MSME borrower must be GST registered. Obviously, in cases where such registration is required, it's mandatory, they have to be registered. But cases where SMEs and MSMEs are not required to obtain the GST registration, they can also be considered. So in those cases, a GST registration certificate will not be required. But where you are, as per the prescribed guidelines, where registration is required, you will necessarily need to furnish a GST registration certificate. An interesting option, an interesting point, there is an opt-out option that is provided for all eligible customers or all eligible borrowers under this particular scheme to enable them to choose whether they wish to continue with this particular facility or not. For the purpose of the scheme, it is not necessary that existing loans of the borrower should be covered under the CGT MSME or the NCGTC scheme. So, this clearly puts a clear-cut guidelines for borrowers and for lending institutions in terms of their eligibility. These are all key aspects and key points that I've tried to put across after a lot of research, after a lot of, if you actually read the entire scheme guidelines, it runs into pages. But I tried to put this into the key aspects as to how concise and whatever is relevant from both the lending institution and from the borrower's standpoint. And the CA fraternity being the agents of change, I think this will put things in perspective for them and help them guide the SMEs and MSMEs in the rightful manner who are their customers. Now, I just given a quick snapshot in terms of the borrower eligibility to make it clearer. Now, we have a borrower who has an overall lending across member lending institutions of around 30 crores. With an individual specific member lending institution or specific financing institution, it has a exposure of 15 crores. Its DPD is 30 days and its turnover is 90 crores. Such a customer is not eligible because of his overall exposure being more than 25 crores across all member lending institutions. Similarly, if you look at the borrower B, the example of borrower B, he is also not eligible because his overall exposure and his DPD do not fit the criterion. DPD criterion is 60 days, his DPD is 62, and his overall exposure across all member lending institutions is more than 25 crores. Borrower C just about fits the bill. He is 1 day lesser than what has been prescribed as per the DPD norms are. So he's eligible. Borrower D fits all the criterion. In the example E, borrower E, his turnover is more than 100 crores. So hence he's not eligible. So I've just tried to put things in perspective from a borrower's eligibility standpoint. So this will help you, give you a good know-how in terms of a quick assessment in terms of whether a borrower is eligible or not. Now, what is the loan amount eligible that a customer can avail under this particular scheme? As I said earlier, that the overall exposure of an enterprise across banks and FIs and across all his lending partners has to be should not be more than 20% of the entire loan outstanding up to rupees 25 crores as on 29th of February. Obviously, the borrower will have to meet the other existing criterion as well. The total outstanding amount would comprise only of the on-balance sheet exposure. Please mind it, off-balance sheet exposures and non-fund based exposures shall not be included. This is a very, very important point. No, one cannot say that because I have taken a loan from a member lending institution across and have both off and on balance sheet items, the member lending institution will give me 20% of that. No, that's not the case. It only comprises of on balance sheet exposure. The MLIs, the member lending institutions, as I said earlier, will have to check with the credit bureau of the overall outstanding before providing such a loan under this particular scheme to an eligible borrower. Loans extended through current government schemes would continue to be categorized under this scheme as earlier. So working capital term loans under this scheme shall be over and above the existing loans that have been provided to a customer. In case a borrower has existing limits with its lenders, with multiple lenders, this scheme may be availed through one specific lender up to an exposure of 20% with that particular lender himself. So there are examples that I'll show in the next slide to make this point much more clearer. But in case a borrower wishes to ask a lender to provide him with a facility which is more than 20% of his exposure, the borrower will have to seek an NOC from the other existing borrowers of that particular entity to get an NOC and then consider amount which is more than 20%. So the first line that I put puts the onus on the member lending institution to enable. Please mind it, it has been mandated to the member lending institutions to enable such a scheme and promote such a scheme to all the SMEs. And it is heartening to see, as per my experience, that the PSU banks and private sector banks and other financing institutions are, or for that matter, have started the lending and started to disburse such loans on their books as of now. So the MLIs are expected to have simple and enabling criteria to assess the borrower eligibility. Because there are existing customers, there are existing borrowers, hence the due diligence, or to the extent of that, maximum amount of due diligence would have already been done. So it is expected that the due diligence is minimal and the credit or the exposure is provided to them in a timely manner. No, it can't. It is not a fresh loan that one is considering to be disbursed. You are talking about customers who are existing. So it is expected that the TATs with respect to such a scheme, when provided to the eligible borrowers, the TATs necessarily need to be crunched on this aspect, and it has to be promoted by the member lending institutions. So as I said, to give you an example, let's say a borrower A has an overall exposure across all his financing institutions of 20 crores. With a specific borrower with whom he wants to go and avail of this particular scheme, his exposure there is 15 crores. Whilst his total maximum eligible amount is 20% of 20 crores, which is 4 crores, a single member lending institution can only provide him 3 crores, which is 20% of its existing exposure. Similarly, borrower B has an overall exposure of 5 crores across all MLIs and 2 crores with a specific member lending institution. Hence, his total maximum eligibility under the scheme is 1 crore. With that specific member lender, it's 0.4 crores. Hence, similar examples of borrower C and borrower D. I think it's for all to understand. Pretty simple. So, but if as said and as highlighted earlier, let's say if the customer wants to go and avail of an exposure which is more than 20% from that specific member lending institution, the member lending institution, if he is agreeable, will have to go and get an NOC from the other lending partners for it to consider a loan which is more than an exposure of 20% of its outstanding with that particular SME or that particular borrower. Now, what are the interest rates and the nature of account and tenor of such a loan? Now, for banks, for banks and MI and FIs, the lending rate is linked to the external benchmark rates as prescribed by the RBI. So the rate fixed for such a loan under this particular scheme will be 1% over and above that prescribed benchmark rate that is being prescribed by the RBI for banks and FIs, subject to a maximum of 9.25% per annum. So one cannot charge more than 9.25% under this particular scheme. For NBFCs, obviously the rates are higher there because of the right reasons. The exposure will not be more than 14% per annum as far as the NBFCs are concerned. But these are very important and very hard-hitting numbers. You know, one must keep in mind 9.25 up to 9.25% or up to 14%. So you know, to get an unsecured loan of less than 14%, you know, I think is a big help for the SMEs and the MSMEs, and very important aspect. So since the additional pre-approved facility is to be provided to existing customers only, there will be no additional processing fee that will be charged. Similarly, there will be no penal interest or levied on that particular customer for non-compliance of already accepted covenants or an already ongoing particular loan that has been there with the particular MLI. This is a loan that is given over and above the existing exposure and needs to be considered in a completely different and a separate manner. Whatever has been happening with an existing loan stays there. It does not fall over to this particular scheme or this particular loan under the scheme of the government, which is the GCL. What is the nature and the tenor of credit? The nature is that there will be, as I said, there will be a separate loan account that will be opened for the borrower, which is going to be distinct from the existing loan accounts. The tenor of the loan shall be for 4 years from the date of disbursement. No prepayment penalty shall be charged by the MLIs in the case of an early payment. Again, a very important aspect to note. The moratorium period for this particular loan is 1 year on the principal amount that shall be provided, during which the interest shall be payable. The principal shall be paid in 36 installments after the moratorium period is over. The account shall be operated in combination with the applicable interest subvention schemes that are feasible. A very important aspect to note that is done. That is this is a very important aspect. The risk weight for all these loans has been kept at 0. So what is the security that is required for this to avail of this particular scheme? So these are other key aspects that I want to highlight. So security is one of them. So there will be no additional facility granted under this particular scheme, but no, the loans granted under this particular scheme shall rank as pari passu with the existing credit facilities. Now, in terms of the cash flows and security, there will be charge on the assets financed under this particular scheme will be created within a period of 3 months from the date of disbursal. There will be no additional collateral asked for this particular scheme. Banks will not need to pay any guarantee fee to the NGCTC for facilities provided under this particular scheme. The trustee company shall provide 100% guarantee coverage on the outstanding amount for the credit facility. The definitions of default will be as per the prescribed guidelines of the RBI and it is issued from time to time. So what happens when there is an invocation of a guarantee? How is that being tackled by the member lending institutions? So the member lending institutions are required to inform the date on which the account has been classified as NPA within 90 days of the account being classified as NPA, which is very important. The trustee company, please note, this is how the MLIs will also be, it's important to note for all of us as to how the MLIs will be, member lending institutions will be compensated and what will be the process and the norms. Because if we don't know that, then we will not be having any counter when we go and speak for our customers with a particular member lending institution. The trustee company shall pay 75% of the guaranteed amount within 30 days of the preferring of eligible claim by the MLI, subject to the claim being otherwise found in order and complete in all respects, obviously. The balance 25% shall be paid on conclusion of recovery proceedings or till the decree gets time barred, whichever is earlier. So this clearly sets the guidelines in terms of how the MLIs will also be compensated for this particular invocation of guarantee. Post the invocation of guarantee claim, if any recoveries are made into the account, the member lending institution shall first adjust the recoveries towards the legal costs incurred by them and shall thereafter remit to the NCGTC the balance recoveries. What is agreement that needs to be executed between the member lending institutions? The member lending institutions will necessarily need to submit an undertaking as prescribed by the trustee company to avail of such a scheme. So this, I think, puts things pretty much, gives a lot of clarity in terms of what is this scheme about, why is this scheme important, who are the eligible members, who are the eligible customers, what is the tenor, what is the rate of interest, how is the loan going to be tackled, what is in it for the customer and what is in it for the member lending institutions, what will happen, how is it going to be classified as an NPA? If that happens, what are the norms? What does the member lending institution need to do for that? How will they be compensated? So all these things have been put. I've tried my best to put things in perspective and in summary for you to have a quick look back in terms of what is allowed and what is not allowed, and accordingly guide the eligible customers on the ground to avail of this particular scheme. As I said, we are all agents of change, and we will need to facilitate this for our existing customers. So I hope I have been in a position to decode the 3 lakh crore scheme in a concise and a crisp manner. And I'm sure this will be of help for you to assist customers in availing of this particular scheme. Now, having said that, coming to the next aspect of my presentation. Now we know what the schemes are, but now we will also need to understand what are the existing products that are currently available in the market that are being given to customers and how are they relevant in this current scenario. No? Because these are not times as usual. These are very, very unusual times. And with these changing times, one will also have to change their mindset. The member lending institution will also change. They will have to change their mindset in their assessment processes. At the same time, even the customers will have to try and understand the perspective of these member lending institutions. So I've tried to map the requirements both from the member lending institution standpoint and from a customer's view. So it's important to understand what a typical working capital cycle of a particular customer is. So what a customer does is that, I've taken the example of a manufacturing unit. A manufacturing unit sources its supply of raw materials from its creditors, so it has a financing requirement there. Once he procures these material, he produces. For production, he will require assets to be onboarded, so he requires funding requirements and that aspect as well. After he produces, he sells. He does his sales. He has his debtors. So to sell, he will also be requiring some amount of financing from a working capital standpoint. And once the working capital has been raised, has been generated, he plows it back into the business. So to manage the entire cycle efficiently, you will require credit. You will require the respective the credit requirements at these various aspects will be different at different points in time. I guess somebody is unmuted. I would request if somebody can mute their. Hi, am I audible?
Yeah. Fine, sir. Now, fine.
Yeah, great.
Sorry for the interruption.
No problem. So, having said that, and having put things, having said and having understood a working capital cycle, these are the typical loan products that have been there in existence since Adam's age. But it's important to understand what are the nature of these loans and these products that are currently available. So, banks typically provide 2 types of funding, which is fund-based and non-fund-based. Fund-based are products that are typically required for funding fixed assets and long-term liabilities and for working capital. For funding fixed assets and long-term liabilities, there are two types of loan that the FIs provide: term loan and demand loan. For working capital, you have overdraft facility, you have cash credit, you have export credit, which is both. I would like to here talk about pre-shipment and post-shipment both. And supply chain finance is something that I will cover in my previous in my next slides as far as the innovative solutions are concerned. Supply chain finance products are also available. Now, give an example: factoring, reverse factoring, anchor-based financing,